The film opens with an airplane landing. Inside a car nearby, Jimmy Vickers, a special ops interrogation officer, listens to an old voicemail from his mother, who expresses hope that he returns home safely. His face reflects deep sorrow. Once home, Jimmy hears another message, this one from his friend Griffin, offering condolences and support, confirming that something tragic has taken place. Later, Jimmy heads to a local bar and questions the owners, Debs and Terry, about the night of the incident. Terry insists he knows nothing, but Jimmy reminds him that he lives only 50 yards from his parents' house, close enough to hear their screams. Tension rises. Terry, annoyed, tells him to leave if he's there to start trouble. Overwhelmed by rage and grief, Jimmy grabs Terry, leading to a brief scuffle before Debs intervenes and urges Terry to tell the truth. Reluctantly, Terry admits he called the fire department that night. He confesses he saw 4 gang members break into Jimmy's parents' house and heard George, Jimmy's father, scream. But paralyzed by fear, he only watched from the window. Afterward, Jimmy visits the charred garage where his parents were killed. Amid the debris, he finds an old photo of them, triggering a painful flashback. The scene shifts to days earlier. George, Jimmy's father, is asked by his wife to mow the lawn before Jimmy's return. The two are excited about his arrival. Meanwhile, in a car nearby, 4 masked gang members snort drugs and prepare for a heist. One says their target always takes the same route with cash. Soon, a woman leaves a building to deposit money. The gang tails her, wearing rabbit masks, and cuts her off. They yank her from the car and frantically search for cash, but find nothing. Just then, George happens to drive by. He stops, confronting the men. One thug strikes George with a bat, but George retaliates, killing him with a punch. As more gang members approach, police sirens blare, forcing them to flee. Later, George tells officers he acted only to protect the girl, but the inspector sarcastically blames him for using deadly force, and George is arrested for manslaughter. That evening, the remaining 3 thugs report the failed job to their boss, Warren. Upon learning his brother was killed, Warren erupts with rage. He orders them not to return until George is dead. After George is released on bail, the gang trails him home. 2 approach the front, 2 sneak around back. One crudely mentions assaulting the mother. George is pinned against a wall, knife at his lips, as the same thug from before mocks his earlier heroism. The couple is then tied to chairs in the garage. Petrol is poured. As they scream in terror, Warren sets the place ablaze. Back in the present, Jimmy stands silently in the burnt garage. Griffin tells him a black BMW was seen speeding that night, but no plate was identified. He suspects the gang involved in the earlier clash murdered George, but without evidence, the police are stuck. Jimmy asks for the CCTV footage from the robbery before leaving, visibly crushed. The next morning, Jimmy visits his parents' graves. In church, his estranged wife Morgan appears. She scolds him for missing the funeral, despite her many emails, but seeing his pain, she softens. She urges him to stop isolating himself and says he can visit her if he needs to. Later, Griffin meets Jimmy and confirms that the black BMW belongs to Warren, whose brother was killed by George. He gives Jimmy the footage. That night, Warren exits the gym. A minor car collision distracts him. He steps out cursing, only to realize Jimmy is waiting behind the wheel. Trained and deadly, Jimmy quickly knocks Warren out cold. Warren wakes tied to his own car seat. Jimmy douses the interior in petrol and reminds him of the innocent couple he murdered. Warren responds with contempt, boasting about sexually assaulting Jimmy's mother that night. Holding back his fury, Jimmy demands the names of the gang members in exchange for his life. Warren complies and writes them down. Without a word, Jimmy lights a cigarette. Later, Jimmy stumbles into Morgan's apartment, wounded. Seeing the blood, she brings him inside and stitches his stab wound. Despite their strained relationship, the trauma brings them closer. He spends the night with her. By morning, news of Warren's death spreads. Given his criminal history, the media isn't surprised. Meanwhile, 2 remaining gang members, Rob and Leon, panic. They suspect Warren's business partner, Caleb, and storm his apartment. Caleb denies involvement, and after his girlfriend intervenes, he warns them not to come back. That night, Griffin visits Jimmy and pleads with him to stop taking justice into his own hand. But Jimmy insists that the justice system is broken. Criminals like Warren don't fear consequences. They laugh in the face of authority, while families like his are left in ruin. Griff later visits the scene of a violent robbery where a man has been killed. But instead of treating it with urgency, Chief Inspector Holland downplays the event, blaming the shopkeeper for fighting back. Griff, visibly shaken, defends the victim, saying the man was just protecting his business. Holland, however, dismisses him, saying the wife will collect insurance and everyone wins. Griff starts seeing the cracks in the system. Meanwhile, Jimmy moves on to his next target, Ryan. In an abandoned building, he restrains Ryan and forces a clamp into his mouth. Then, in a gruesome act, Jimmy fills Ryan's throat with wet cement. The next day, police discover his corpse, his upper body solidified from the cement. A message loud and clear. This particular murder catches Holland's attention. He sees it as a high-profile case that could land him a promotion. Shortly after, Terry, the bar owner, hands over security footage to Holland, showing Jimmy putting an unconscious man in his car. Despite Debs warning him not to get involved, Terry fears his bar might end up like George's house, burned to the ground. The police soon question Morgan, but she lies to protect Jimmy, who's hiding in her apartment. Later, at a convenience store, 2 officers attempt to arrest Jimmy, but out of nowhere, a car screeches to a halt. 2 muscular men leap out, attack the officers, and help Jimmy escape. To Jimmy's surprise, the man behind the rescue is none other than Colonel Leach. Because of Jimmy's value to special forces, the colonel has come in person to retrieve him. But first, he gives Jimmy 48 hours to finish what he started, eliminate the remaining gang members, and then return to duty. Meanwhile, Griff confides in Joe, the SWAT team leader. He tells him the truth, that Jimmy is a friend whose parents were brutally murdered. Joe believes Jimmy is going too far, but Griff insists that Holland is worse, chasing glory at the cost of justice. Back on the hunt, Jimmy targets Leon. At a strip club, Leon receives a disturbing envelope with Ryan's death photo. He panics and bolts, but Jimmy intercepts him. Leon wakes up bound, half his body chained to a gate, the other to a car. He pleads for answers, but Jimmy remains silent. Then, without warning, Jimmy hits the gas, tearing Leon in half. The next day, Colonel Leach meets Holland at a restaurant. He demands all intel on Jimmy, declaring him military property. Holland refuses, saying if the army interferes, Leach will face legal consequences. The colonel recalls an incident from 2009, a terrorist who refused to talk. Jimmy broke him in under 10 minutes. Men like Jimmy, he says, don't fear death, they invite it. He warns that Jimmy will finish what he started and disappear. Later, top police officials meet with the Army's chief. Without giving many details, the Army insists Jimmy must not be arrested. He's a critical asset in national intelligence. The Army wants direct updates, showing how high the stakes are. That night, Jimmy corners Rob, the last surviving gang member, outside a drug den. He forces Rob to knock on the door, then uses him as a human shield. Though Rob escapes, Jimmy kills the remaining drug dealers, sparing only Caleb, the business partner of a slain gang leader. Jimmy restrains Caleb and mixes a batch of chemicals used to cook drugs. In a symbolic act, he dissolves stacks of cash in the bucket, then pours the chemical over Caleb, melting him alive. Meanwhile, Holland realizes Griff has been feeding Jimmy information. He tries to get Griff to reveal who's next, but Griff refuses, warning him to stay out of Jimmy's way. Ignoring orders, Holland tracks down Rob in the hospital. Rob later breaks into Jimmy's apartment and reads some letters. Jimmy catches up to him near a seaport. Rob kneels, hands bound, as Jimmy takes out a syringe filled with a lethal aerosol agent. But then Rob spits at Jimmy and nods toward his car trunk. When Jimmy opens it, he's horrified. Rob has murdered Morgan. Shattered, Jimmy unloads his entire clip into Rob just as the SWAT team and Holland arrive. Griff shows up too, furious that Holland let Rob go, which led to Morgan's death. Holland claims he was using Rob to track Jimmy, not expecting him to kill. Seeing Holland's true colors, Joe orders his team to stand down, refusing to follow him any further. They let Jimmy, now emotionally destroyed, walk away. Holland tries to stop him, but Jimmy knocks him out cold with one punch. The film ends in a dark alley. A young woman is cornered by 2 thugs as she cries out for help. At the far end of the alley, Jimmy steps into the shadows. When the attackers threaten him, the screen fades to black as Jimmy gives a chilling smile. End the movie. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our other recaps and subscribe for more content. And leave comment below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.